Hey, welcome back to this re-recorded tutorial. Today I will gonna take you through a short introduction into the geometry nodes fields system, and on the way we will make a really great looking galaxy like this. So, let's get started. We will be using the newest Blender version, which will be Blender 3.4 Alpha. You can download it via the blender.org website under experimental or via the Blender launcher. And let's get started. Delete everything with A and then delete. And add a cube back in as always. And then we will be dragging this window up here. And we will be going into the geometry nodes editor. Then we can close this window here. We don't need this, it just distracts. We can create a new node tree here. So now we activate geometry nodes. But what is geometry nodes now? So geometry nodes is a node-based system that changes the geometry of your object. And it is basically here also a modifier. And then you have the graph here at the bottom, and here you have your geometry flowing in. Then you can manipulate it on the way, and then it goes out and it shows you the result in the viewport. So the best way to show you this, if we will cut this wire out of here, there will be nothing in the viewport because we've removed the geometry from our object. But of course we want to see it. Now, to create our galaxy, we don't want to have our cube. So we just disconnect our geometry. Our cube is going into the group input, and you can also see it in the edit mode. But we don't use it now because we don't have this wire connected to the output. So we want to create new geometry in here that we then output out of here, out of the output. And for this, we have to add a new node. You can add a new node via the menu here on the top, on the add, or you can just use the shortcut Shift and A. And we want to have a curve primitive. And then we use a curve circle. And now we have this node, and you can click to release this node, and we can drag our socket here into the output. And now we can see our curve circle. Now we can change here the resolution, we can change the radius and whatsoever. So now we say geometry node, don't use our cube that we have here in our edit mode. We want to create new geometry. We want to have a curve that is shaped like a circle, and we want to see it in the viewport and have that rendered. So this is what geometry nodes now does. We want to manipulate our curve. How can we do this? We can add another node in between here to manipulate our node until it gets outputted. So we can go another time into the add menu with Shift A, and then we can go into the curve submenu. And here we can add a fill curve node, and we can drag it until it's on here, and we can just drag it on top of our noodle. That's the wire here. It's also called noodle. But when the wire is lighting up, you can release it and it gets automatically put in between. And now what this node does, it just fills our curve circle with faces. And to do that, it has to convert our curve to a mesh. You can see this. It gets a curve inputted and it outputs us a mesh. So now our curve circle is now a plate. What do we want to do now to make this a galaxy? We want to create a lot of points or stars on our plate here, and then we want to spin them around the center. And this will look like a galaxy then in the end. So the next step we want to make is we want to create our stars here on the plate. And for that, we have to create a lot of positions, or in the geometry nodes way of saying it, we want to create a lot of points on our plate that then act as stars. How can we do this? We can go another time into our add menu, here into the point submenu. And here we want to distribute points on our faces. And we can also add it here in between, because now we create a circle, we fill it with faces, and then we create points on those faces we've created on our circle. And this gets outputted, and this is what points look like. So points also have radius because they also get rendered in the viewport if you are in the cycles. So let's switch to the cycles render engine and to GPU because it's faster. If we will switch to rendered mode, you can see points get rendered, and they get rendered as perfectly round spheres. And they are they have a very high performance. So you can create millions and millions of them. And so we can work with them to create stars. And now we have on our distribute points on faces node, we have a lot of sockets here and also new sockets. We have first of all here our density slider, so we can create more or less points. Then we have those sockets here that are a diamond shape, and those are fields. And now we have created our points here on our plate, but now we want to move them. And how can we do that? We have to change the position of our points. And we can always change the position of something with the set position node. This is a node you have to remember because you will use it like all the time. And so we have to go into the add menu again, and under the submenu geometry, we have the set position node. We can just snap it into here, and here we can manipulate the position of our points. And now we have those diamond shaped sockets here, and those indicate that those are field inputs. So if I will now grab an input position node and plug it into the position, nothing will happen because first of all, this node doesn't contain an information because it is a field node. It's just an indicator. So this node only says that take the information, take the position from this geometry that flows above here. Everything that has a green line is the geometry flow, and everything that is a field which has a dash line, that is a data flow. And so here geometry nodes things like, okay, I have this geometry, I have points. I want to change the position here, and then it looks for the position of my points. I want to use the position of my points so it stays the same. But now we can manipulate the position of our points, for instance, with a vector math node, and we can add the same thing that we can here. Or we can multiply. But we want to rotate our points around the center. And we can do this by using a vector rotate node. Here at the bottom, vector rotate. We want to rotate around the Z direction. So we have to use the angle here. We want to have it spinning in the center more like on the outside. So we need a field for the center, and we can use also the position for this. And we can use a vector math node, and by using the length, we have the center of our position. And we can use this center in the angle, and now by using a math node set to multiply, we can see it works, but in the opposite way. We don't want to have it spinning on the outside, we want to have it spinning on the inside. So we have to flip our result, and we can just do that with the map range node, setting the 0 to 1 and the 1 to 0. And now the middle is spinning. To have an even cooler effect, you can lower the resolution of our curved circle. And because this is all procedural, you can always change every parameter in the node tree, which is pretty nice. You can change the resolution, and with that you can end up with really nice results. And now we have something looking like Galaxy-like, but not as cool. So now we don't want to have those points to be that big. So we will grab in the point category, we want to use a set point radius, and we want to lower the radius a bit. But now we want to have a different radius or a random radius for every single point. How can we do this? We have a node for this, and it is in the utility submenu, the random value node. You can grab that and drag that into the radius. And now you can see everything is messed up. And this is because our max value is way too big. So just type in here 0.01. And now you can see every single point has a random radius, because it looks here again, it has the geometry input of points. And then it looks for the radius, it uses, for every single point, it uses a random value between 0 and 0.01. And that for every single point. And now we can higher up our density, because we need a lot more points. But now we don't want to have this thing that flat. We want to have a little noise pattern. So we can grab our vector rotate thing here and just take it on the side. I want to now use noise texture to displace our vectors a little bit, so we can change the position of our points also with a little bit of noise texture. And we can do this by using a mix node. So just go into the add menu and search for it, mix. And there's only one mix node, and we have to change it to color mode. And you can plug it into here, and we can use in the texture the noise texture and plug it into the B socket. And now you can see it's a little bit messed up. That's because we are using the mix socket. We want to use the linear light socket, and we want to don't clamp the factor. And we want to lower the strength a little bit. We only want a little bit of distortion. Of course, we want to have a lot of more points. So just type in here 0 more. Still too defined for me. So I will higher up the detail of our noise texture and the roughness. And now I want to have it more distorted on the outside than on the inside. So we've already calculated the distance from the middle. So we want to just use that on our mix factor node. And now everything is messed up again, but you can see it's basically working. So in the middle is not that distorted, and on the outside it gets really distorted. But we want to have a finer control of that. So we just grab a color ramp and plug it into here. And now we can change here the handles. First of all, set it to ease. And in the middle, I want to have not a value of 0. Want to have maybe a value of 0.1. And on the outside, I don't want to have it that strong either. So maybe something like, yeah, that should be fine. Maybe also higher up the roughness. This looks to be right. Now I want to have also the points on the outside more smaller than the points on the inside. So we will be using our length again, and we will be using our mix node. So just duplicate it and swap it between the set point radius and the random value node. And now I want to mix our random value with a value of 0, so just the black color. And I want to use our length calculation of the middle here again and swap it into the factor. And now the points on the outside are smaller than the points on the inside. And now the last thing we have to do is animate the whole thing. So this is just by dragging this slider here. And we have also a node for this. It is the scene time node. So just grab that. And you can use the seconds on the multiply. And then the whole thing gets swirled up. You can also slow it down by using another multiply and maybe multiply it by 0.2. So it's a lot slower. And if you want to add it so it's not at the beginning, you could just add like this. And now it's working. And if you want to have, currently we have like 3 going around, but you can also always add more here, but 3 just looks good. This is basically everything we will be doing in geometry nodes. So this is then how it looks in the viewport. And we can lower the background. Last thing we want to have is material. And for that, we can create a new material on our object here. And the first thing we see, it is not working even if we drag up emission. And this is because geometry doesn't know that we use our material on our object because we don't use the group input. And so this information gets lost when we disconnect the group input. So we have to reassign our material. We can do this by using in the material submenu the set material node. Just plug it at least. Then we will use the material 0.110, whatever you took. And then in the viewport, we can see it works. And then we can go over to the shader editor. And here we can delete the principled BSDF and use an emission. And we want to have a random color for every single point. And for this, we have a node in the input, the point info node. And we can use the random into our color. Then we can use a color ramp like this. And we can use maybe a bluish color and a purplish color like this. We can also higher up the strength, always like this. And now we want to have a gradient from the middle to the end. So we have used the field for that in geometry node, so we can port it over to the shader editor. How can we do this? In the geometry nodes editor, we have calculated here the length of our middle, and we just have to drag this information in the group output, and now it puts that into an attribute that we can use outside of geometry nodes. And here in the modifier tab, we can go into the output attributes, and here we can define the name of our attribute, of our new attribute we now want to create. So I just call it Apple, just for demonstration that you can use every name. And now our information from the middle, the length from the middle, is now stored in the attribute that is called Apple. And we can go into the shader editor, and we can use in the input attribute input here, the attribute node. If I plug the color into the surface, you can see absolutely nothing. But if I'll type the word apple, so we grab our attribute apple, we now have the attribute from our middle. And we can use that by using an hue saturation node and plugging the color into the hue. Now this is all colorful and you can do this if you want to, but I don't want to have this. So I'll just use a color ramp, and I will just play around with these settings here. Maybe something like that, and here a little bit down like this. And of course you can always add more points and smaller points till you get crazy. So here in geometry nodes we can lower the scale of those points to the half. And now we can add more points. We basically have the whole effect and everything is still animated. I think this was it. This was half an hour. And yeah, thank you all for watching. So the original file is over onto my Gumroad. You can check that out if you want to. Looks like that. Those are also just points. And it's really performance, which is very nice. And you can check that out if you want to. And yes, the original file also has way more features and looks better. For that, you can go on to my Gumroad page, which looks like this. The link is in the description. And here you can go onto the tutorial resources. Here is where I will upload every single file from my tutorials. And we are currently on the 4th tutorial on this channel. And then you can click on the Galaxy generator and then you will have it. Here on the bottom is also the picture. So the 4th tutorial, the Galaxy generator, and then you can click on which you want. The Galaxy generator is for this tutorial. And then you will get the file. You can also check out my material pack. There is a simple version and an advanced version. The simple version is for free and you will get around about 300 plus materials that are very great. And yes, don't forget to subscribe and thank you all for watching. Have a nice weekend.